Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with the practice questions for the day, a quick gentle reminder. BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS, as part of its Target Prelims 2023, would be conducting a session on art and culture, places in news, and this session would be between 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. Please do tune in so that you understand all the important topics that have been in news for the past 365 days with respect to art and culture and places in news. Let's get started and look into the first practice question. Fisher effect describes the relationship between inflation and unemployment, income inequality and economic growth, inflation and interest rate and tax revenue. The answer to this is inflation and interest rate. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to inflation. Let us try and understand what is this concept of Fisher effect. This happens to be an economic theory that was proposed by Irving Fisher. What does it do? It basically describes the relationship between interest rate and inflation. In here, when we consider the interest rate, it includes both the real and nominal interest rate. The Fisher effect goes on to say that the real interest rate equals the nominal interest rate minus the expected inflation rate. So the Fisher effect examines the link between inflation rate, nominal interest rate and the real interest rate. So Fisher effect is a relationship between inflation and interest rate. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section what is the Lorentz curve. What is this? Please put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to default bail, which of the following statements are correct? According to section 187 of 2 CRPC, an accused is entitled to default bail if the investigating agency failed to file a final charge sheet within 60 days from the date of remand. It is granted to bailable offences only. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is none. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to default bail. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, according to section 187 of 2 of CRPC, this is wrong because it is 167 of 2 which speaks about the default bail, and the default bail also has another criterion as well. Let's say, for example, if there is a particular punishment that is accorded to one of the crimes committed by a person, in that case the investigating officer will also get an extension of another 30 days. So it is not just 60 days, it can also be extended to 90 days if that particular punishment is imposed. Let's say, for example, death penalty, so on and so forth. In that case, it can also be 90 days as well added to it. With respect to UAPA, it can also change. With respect to NDPS, which are the special laws, it can also change as well. So according to section 167 of the CRPC, what it speaks about is the default bail, and it is not 187. It is granted to bailable offences only. This statement is also wrong. It is granted both to the bailable as well as the non-bailable offences. This basically means that if a person has committed an offense where bail is a matter of right, in such cases default bail can also be given. In such cases where it is a non-bailable offense, where do you see whether an offense is a bailable offense or not? In CRPC, what we have is a schedule. In this particular schedule, we have the offenses that are committed, and whether that particular offense is a bailable offense or not will be defined under that particular schedule. So default bail will be given both to the bailable offences and the non-bailable offences. What is this default bail? When it comes to bail, there are three types of bail. One is what is called as the regulatory bail. Second is what is called as the anticipatory bail. Third is the default bail. When it comes to the regulatory bail, what happens? A person is behind the bars. So as and when he is behind the bars, his advocate will file a case in the court of law and he would be taken out of the prison. So he is in prison. So bringing him out of the prison is the regulatory bail. What happens in anticipatory bail? In anticipatory bail, this person is not behind bars, but he is anticipating that the police officers may arrest him. So even before an arrest is made, he is going to the court of law asking for the anticipatory bail. That is, he is not yet arrested in this particular case. What happens in default bail? In default bail, the police officers will have to file a charge sheet. They have to investigate about that particular crime and give a charge sheet within 60 or 90 days. And in special laws like NDPS, UAPA, it may also be extended as well. If they are not able to give this entire investigating report, that is the charge sheet, within a prescribed period of time of 60 or 90 days, in that case, this so-called accused would be able to file before the court and he would be given a default bail. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statement with respect to Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act of 2013. Every employer must constitute an internal complaints committee at each office or branch that had 20 or more employees. The act protects the rights of all women who are working or visiting any place if any capacity. If the women cannot complain because of physical or mental incapacity or death or otherwise, her legal heir may do so. Which of the following statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to PoSH Act, which is why we have taken this practice question. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, it is not 20 or more employees. Instead, it is 10 or more employees. So the internal complaints committee will have to be constituted if there is a company or an organization that has more than 10 or more employees. The second statement is right. What do we understand by the second statement? Let's say, for example, there is a person, a woman, who is working in one of the company. She is already part of that particular company. Since she is part of the company, she is able to file a case under the PoSH Act. What if there is a woman who's come to that particular company for an interview? She has come to the premises of that particular company. In that case, she is not a permanent employee. She's not even an employee of the company. But because she comes to that organization and company for the interview, even under these circumstances, PoSH Act can be implemented. So basically, it is not just for the contractual employee or the permanent employee. Even if a woman comes to the company for interview or she is within the premises of that particular company and then sexual harassment or any sexual favors is asked in that particular case, that will be covered under the PoSH Act. The third statement reads, if the woman cannot complain because of a physical or mental incapacity or death or otherwise, her legal heir may do so. Yes, this statement is also right. So when we speak about sexual harassment at workplace, implied or explicit promise of preferential treatment is an aspect of PoSH. Implied or explicit threat of detrimental treatment, complaints present or future employment status, interference with the complainant's work or creating offensive or hostile work environment, humiliating treatment of the complainant that is likely to affect her health or safety, all falls under the PoSH Act. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements is incorrect with respect to LIBOR? It is the global reference rate for unsecured short-term borrowing in the interbank market. The five currencies for which LIBOR is computed are Swiss franc, euro, pound sterling, Japanese yen and US dollar. LIBOR is administered by the Intercontinental Exchange or ICE, the United Kingdom financial regulator that oversees LIBOR has announced that they will discontinue the index by 2030. Which of the statements are incorrect with respect to LIBOR? The answer to this is D. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to LIBOR, which is why we have taken this practice question. What is the answer for this? The United Kingdom financial regulator that oversees LIBOR has announced that they will discontinue this index by the year 2023, that is this year, by the month of June. So they will be discontinuing the LIBOR, and what we will have is other options that we may have to explore. So what is LIBOR? It happens to be London Interbank Offered Rate. It is benchmark for loan issuers who wish to set interest rate for various financial products, and the benchmark interest rate was calculated in five currency, which includes UK pound sterling, Swiss franc, euro, Japanese yen as well as US dollar. So what does it stand for? This basically is the interbank offer rate, and it is the accepted interest rate for all the global markets which give unsecured loans to other international banks for a very short period of time. So this basically indicates the borrowing cost in the world's interbank market. Now let's look into the next practice question. Microbial fuel cells are considered a source of sustainable energy. Why? They use living organisms as catalysts to generate electricity from certain substrate. They use a variety of inorganic materials as substrate. They can be installed in wastewater treatment plants to cleanse water and produce electricity. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 3 only. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2011. Why is the second statement wrong? That is because they are devices that use bacteria as catalysts to oxidize organic and inorganic matter and also generate current. So the second statement is wrong. That is why 1 and 3 would be the answers. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is FluHorse malware. Let us try and understand what is this malware all about. First, let us understand the meaning of malware. What is malware? Malware is nothing but malicious software. A software which looks like a legitimate software, but it is not a legitimate software. When you download it, it starts processing the data and ultimately it takes away certain data is what is called as the malware. So basically, FluHorse happens to be a malicious software that targets multiple sectors in Eastern Asia, and it is typically distributed via email. In some cases, high profile entities such as government officials were targeted at the initial stages of the phishing email attack. What exactly happens? What do? They start sending emails to the people. It can be high worth individuals, it can also be government employees as well. So the minute they send an email, the person opens that email and he'll be landing himself on the phishing site. What is this phishing site? A phishing site is a website which looks authenticately like that of a, let's say, a bank, or let's say for example a social media platform. So a mail will be sent and this person will click on that particular link. It will take to a website, and this website will have the layout completely similar to it, and ultimately he will be asked to give the credentials as well. And once the credentials are given, that data will also be stolen. Added to it, if a particular person clicks on this link given by these hackers, he goes to a particular website, and this particular website will also have a software as well. They will download this particular software thinking that it is a legitimate software, and once they download this software would be able to read the messages as well. And once the software reads the messages, it will also be able to get the OTP, read the message, and ultimately all the financial transactions can also be taken into a look. So what exactly happens in the FluHorse malware? It is a malware which is installed as an APK. Victim is asked to input the credentials. Victim is asked to input credit card details as well. And before the message comes, they'll be able to set up the entire procedure. Victim is asked to wait for about several minutes. While the victim is waiting, malware operators make use of the stolen data. If 2FA is required, it is also sent directly to the attackers as well. That is a two-factor authentication. So on one side, they give their credentials, that is their password as well as the username, and at the same time, if messages do come to their mobile, because they have already downloaded this particular software, they would also be able to take this data as well and ultimately steal their finances. So this is what is happening with respect to FluHorse malware, which is a malware that is planted on some of the Android phones where in the Eastern Asia. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.